myself a slice of time when the wind blows, when the river meets the sea.
In order to stay warm in the woods, we need to keep ourselves warm by lighting a fire. To light a fire, we have to collect wood. That wood requires energy in the form of energy from our muscles, which we fuel through food. That food has to be collected. So this is the vicious circle. It makes us realize why energy is so vital for our survival. And when we live in a normal world, in a suburban world where we can flick a switch and turn on the TV, boil a kettle, everything becomes so simple. But in reality, all this energy comes from somewhere, and that somewhere is oil. Today we'll be speaking to Paul Allen from the Centre for Alternative Technology at Bushcraft in mid-Wales.
We in the developed West now have an appallingly bad attitude to energy. It's rooted in the 1920s and the 30s when oil was literally cheaper than water. All the major industrialised countries were awash with energy. So we designed our industrial and our living systems quite literally to use as much energy as possible. The way we sited the suburbs, the taking up of the light railways, the way we designed our houses, because energy was cheap and nobody saw any limits to the growth in energy demand. But now in 2008 we realise that the North Sea oil has peaked. In fact, if you look at most of the oil-producing countries, a great many of them have peaked, and particularly the big producers in the Saudi area, if they've peaked, then probably the world has peaked.
Photovoltaic panels can be used to generate electricity using the energy from the sun. In Bushcraft, we have another means of obtaining the energy that we need: trees. Trees use a process known as photosynthesis to convert the energy from the sun. This is then stored away in the cells of the tree, and then, when the tree dies, we can use it as fuel. And by burning the wood, we release the energy that was put away all those years before.
We don't know exactly where we are now because there's a lot of lack of transparency in world oil reserve data, but we know that inevitably, with demand exploding across the globe, there must come a point round about now, round about the midpoint. It doesn't mean we're running out of oil, it just means we can't produce it as fast as the world demands it.
Right, or as cheaply, which is
or as cheaply.
the main point.
So the gap between an escalating demand and a decelerating production begins to get wider very quickly.
All right. And how do you think the implications of this will affect us generally?
Well, what we'll see is oil prices beginning to rise, the laws of supply and demand. And a few years ago we wouldn't have expected to see oil at $100+ a barrel. So we're already seeing some of the indications. But then what we find is that we can't actually meet all of the world's demand. And if we've set up our systems to become very fragile, very brittle and totally dependent on abundant cheap oil, it's going to cause hardship somewhere down the line.